Alright, we are live, ladies and germs. And, where do I even begin? Where do I even begin with this race? Definitely one of the most interesting races I've ever watched, to say the least. So there is a lot to talk about from this race, and some pretty interesting news stories that came out this week as well. So saddle up, lock and load, ladies and gentlemen. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packer Man, and welcome to tonight's edition of The Fuel, where tonight we are going to be reviewing the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 from the Atlanta Motor Speedway, or as some people are probably going to be calling it after tonight, Atlanta Superspeedway. My God, where do I even begin with this race? I mean, there was already a lot of unknowns coming into this race due to the fact that they had completely reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway on top of repaving it. They made the banking 28 degrees hot, or 28 degrees instead of just 24 degrees. They narrowed the width of the turns, and they also lengthened the front stretch and I think the back stretch a little bit, something like that. But it was nowhere near. Excuse me. It was nowhere near what it looked like 12 months ago. And it's safe to say that, I mean, the track needed it. I mean, the surface was old and decrepit, and it was coming apart. Like, literally, I mean, chunks of it were literally coming out of the surface. So it had to be repaved. Did it need to be reconfigured? No, absolutely not. And there was a lot of apprehension going into this race because of the fact that NASCAR said that they were going to use the superspeedway package, and on top of that they decided to use the out of bounds rule, which I thought was fucking stupid. I mean, imagine that, an out of bounds rule on an intermediate track. You know, and there were a lot of people. I'm just going to go ahead and get this off my chest right now. There are some major dick suckers of NASCAR that were getting really butthurt over the fact that there were some NASCAR tubers that were basically telling it like it is. And it just irritated the fuck out of me, to say the least. You know, because Real Radman, he basically, I mean, he said something about Hailie Deegan needing to start finishing in the top 10 because you know, she hadn't had a good start to the year. You know, and there were some people that were basically slamming him for it for whatever reason, even though it's constructive criticism. And there was even a couple people like, well, he likes NASCAR Ignition, so that's all you really need to know. Like, what the fuck does liking or disliking a video game have to do with anything? Why is that even a part of the conversation? Like, honestly, this is how fucking stupid this fan base can be. Like, if you have to use what someone's personal preferences to video games, whether they like, I mean, let's be honest here, NASCAR Ignition, let's be honest, not a good game. I mean, it came out absolutely broken as fuck, okay? But some people still enjoy the game. I mean, that's what video games are. They're made for entertainment, and here's a newsflash for you fucktards. Entertainment is subjective, meaning it is based on one's personal preference or their own personal tastes. And not everybody's tastes are going to be the same. So bringing up something like, oh, well, he likes NASCAR Ignition, so, his opinion doesn't really matter. I mean, who gives a fucking shit what video game someone likes? I mean, why is that part of the argument? Like, if you have to use that sort of shit to try to strengthen your argument, then you've quite frankly already fucking lost. Because you're bringing up something that's not even a relevant part of the conversation, and it quite frankly makes you look like a fucking moron. And then there was another guy on Twitter who got super butthurt over, I think it was, Brock Beard. He basically said, this is not good racing, this is not good broadcasting, this is complete and utter garbage. I hate being this negative, but I'm beyond angry at this point. And of course, he's talking about the Xfinity race, and I think to a lesser extent the truck race, because let's be honest here, the Xfinity and truck races yesterday were fucking garbo. Okay, and the broadcasts, I mean, here's another thing about the Fox broadcasts. I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but this all ties together. What the fuck is up with Fox pointing the camera at little kids, in the grandstands? Like, what the fuck is up with their obsession with that all of a sudden? Like, there were two little girls in particular, called, I guess, nicknamed Shake and Bake, and they were pointing the camera on them like every other commercial break, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, why are we focusing on this instead of the action on the racetrack? In fact, there were several times during the Xfinity race where they didn't have good camera angles and had to rely on the fucking security cameras at the track in order to see what the fuck happened on the track. Like, what in the actual fuck is that? But there was this one fuck ass on Twitter let me find this fucking tard monkey. Like, some people on here are just fucking idiots. This is awesome racing. Don't like it, don't watch. Simple as that. I can't even fucking spell, you fucking idiot. Like, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Alright, here we go. This guy, Alex Stevenson, if that's even his real fucking name. Did Nick Bromberg take over your account or something? We get it. Everything about racing peaked in the 90s for you. I don't like Fox's broadcasting either, but the constant negativity from you related to all things NASCAR is beyond tiresome. Don't ruin it for the rest of us. No, what's tiresome is wipe asses like you getting butthurt over someone's opinion. Okay, here's a news flash for you fucking idiots. Everything entertainment related is subjective. You don't like what Brock Beard says or what these NASCAR tubers say? The block button exists for a reason. So if you want to use it, go ahead and stay in your fucking safe space. Move on and shut your fucking pie hole. Because, quite frankly, I am sick to fucking death of these stupid fucking NASCAR fans getting all fucking butthurt when we like to tell it like it is. Like, get fucked. Seriously. This is about the dumbest fucking fan base on the entire planet. all you like to do is complain. No, motherfucker! We give constructive criticism over what we see on the goddamn racetrack. What part of that does not go through your fucking head meat? God damn! I am sick to fucking death of that shit! Anyway, just wanted to get that off my chest because I've been seeing that a lot this week and it's been fucking pissing me off. Just continues to prove my point that the majority of this fan base is just fucking sucks. Bunch of fucking scumbags. Every last one of them. Anyway, that's my opening rant for this week. Just wanted to get all that off my chest. So before we get into the review tonight, let's get through some news of the weekend. There's quite a bit to get through. 1 second. Alright, so we got some headlines this week. First up, viewership from the race at Phoenix. It pulled just under 4 million viewers. Give me 1 second. I need to look this up again. So Fox TV earned a 2.33 rating and 3.991 million viewers for Sunday's race at Phoenix, which was actually down 9% in viewership from the equivalent weekend last year, which was 4.396 million for the fourth points race at Vegas. It was still the most watched U.S. sports event of the weekend, which is pretty impressive. So, the last couple of weeks, NASCAR's been averaging around 4.5 million viewers. So, Phoenix kind of dipped just below 4 million, which, let's be honest here, it wasn't really a surprise to me. It isn't really a surprise to me. Most of the race was just not watchable. It just wasn't good. I would imagine the viewership numbers for Atlanta are going to be much higher because, it was basically a superspeedway race. And for the most part, it was pretty entertaining to watch. I don't know if this is the sort of thing that I want to see at every single intermediate track. Actually, scratch that. It's not the type of thing that I want to see at every intermediate track because we don't need 15 goddamn superspeedway races. And tonight was a pretty big example. We saw... they showed a graphic. I think there's like 30 cars that were involved in some type of accident in this race. And that's just way too much. Especially when you consider the fact that these teams are still, dealing with, car shortages and parts shortages and all that other shit. And now a lot of these teams have to go back and, repair their cars and, do all that shit. And, they're already probably working their fingers to the bone as it is. Trying to get these cars built and shit. So, a race like this doesn't really help, but it is what it is, But I know Kurt Busch after the race said that he would like to see the cars go unrestricted, go back to just being a regular mile and a half, which, I can understand. I can understand. I can sort of understand why NASCAR did what they did. It's a brand new surface, and typically brand new surfaces result in tracks becoming single lane racetracks for a few years until the asphalt ages. But one thing's for damn sure. The super speedway racing aspect really drew in a lot more fans because ticket sales for the Cup race spiked after practice. So, there you go. But it'll be interesting to see what Atlanta pulled as far as viewership. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they pulled more than 5 million. So, we'll wait and see on that in a few days. The number 7 Spire Motorsports crew chief and crew members were suspended. Of course, these suspensions came out on Tuesday, which is typically penalty day for NASCAR. 4 race suspensions were issued to Corey LaJoie's crew chief Ryan Sparks and 2 crew members for the wheel that came off at Phoenix. And Spire Motorsports uses Hendrick trained crews. So these were pretty good crews that this 7 team had. So although considering that they did a pretty damn good job today, and we'll get to that, I'd say they overcame quite a bit to get the finish that they got tonight. What do you want, cat? God. What you want, Claw? Shithead. Anyway. Tyler Reddick. This is also some pretty big news that came out as well. Tyler Reddick has apparently inked a deal that will keep him under contract with Richard Childress Racing through 2023. So this is on NBCSports.com. So Richard Childress says Tyler Reddick is under contract for 2023. So car owner Richard Childress said Tuesday that Tyler Reddick will be back with the team next season. He's under contract for next year, he told The Athletic and NBC Sports. If you hear that meowing, that's the little ones. I don't know what the hell they want. Figures 2 of them are asleep. God damn it, cat. 2 of them are asleep and 2 of them are meowing. Go figure. Anyways, the 26-year-old Reddick is in his 3rd Cup season with Richard Childress Racing. He finished 3rd last week at Phoenix Raceway. Reddick, who is a 2-time Xfinity champion, has been strong this year. He is 9th in points going into Sunday's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. He led 51 laps in the Clash before mechanical issues sidelined him. He led 90 laps and won both stages at Auto Club before a cut tire caused him to slow, and he was hit by William Byron's car. Yeah, that was unfortunate. He was 7th at Vegas and 3rd at Phoenix. This is the Tyler Reddick that I knew was there, Choda said. Reddick made the playoffs last year, scoring 16 top 10 finishes. Asked about what's different for him this season, Reddick said after last weekend's race, just getting out of it what I'm putting into it. It's really nothing else than that. I just really want to win, really want to run good for my team. They feed off that. Then I feed off of that. It seems like we just keep feeding off each other to keep proving and finding new ways to get faster, wherever it may be. We just feed off each other. Childress has been pleased with how well Dillon and Reddick work together. Reddick and Austin are working better together than any 2 drivers I've ever had. Well, there you go. Of course, Austin Dillon, he's probably never leaving that 3 car as long as he's in Cup. So it's nice to see that Tyler Reddick has the seal of approval from Richard Childress himself. NASCAR has introduced some new wet weather rules. Now, what does that mean? Well, they've introduced some new wet weather rules. And apparently this came out on March the 16th. So what I'm going to do is go into activate display capture and then activate this. So here's what the new rules look like according to Bob Pockris, who says it is now up to teams when to use wet tires if NASCAR declares the track wet during road course events. There will be no more damp declaration prior to race and no more mandate of rain tires. So obviously they're trying to get it more towards, other racing series where, you just switch to the wet weather tires if need be. So if the series managing director declares wet weather conditions prior to race start, vehicles will have the option, when approved by NASCAR, to make a tire configuration change on the grid and retain their original starting positions. No other adjustments or refueling will be permitted at this time. Windshield wipers may be installed. During the initial pace laps as directed by NASCAR, vehicles may return to their assigned pit stall and make a tire configuration change and retain their original starting position. If a team changes tires other than on the NASCAR designated lap, the teams will forego their original starting position and start at the rear of the field. No other adjustments or refueling may be permitted at this time. Windshield wipers may be installed. Once the race begins, the crew chief is solely responsible for the decision of when to use dry or wet condition equipment for the remainder of the race. In addition, NASCAR will also require rain flaps to be installed if wet weather conditions are declared on road courses. Teams must have the mounting components prepared prior to the event so they can be installed. And of course, they're at the rear of the car. I think they're going to be at the front and rear of the car from the looks of it. To try and looks like it's going to be backing plates constructed of 0.09 inch thick aluminum must be used to support nut plates for attachment of the rear rain flap brackets to the wheel tubs. So you're probably asking yourself, why would they put rain flaps on in this case? Well, one thing that they're trying to curb for the wet weather conditions is the spray that comes off these cars, especially in very wet conditions like we saw at Austin last year, when you basically saw a giant rooster tail coming out of the back of the car and basically you can't see. Although, to be honest, that race in Circuit of the Americas, I mean, it was pretty much a monsoon, so I mean, you couldn't see anything regardless. But one thing they're going to try to do is with if it's, you know, somewhat wet but not to the point where, you know, you can't see jack shit regardless, hopefully what the rain flaps will do is kind of try to dissipate the water a little bit, at least not throw it out the back of the car and shoot up them fucking giant rooster tails. So will it actually work? Well, we don't know. We have to wait until we have a rain race to find out. We do have 6 road course races though, so is it 6 or is it down to 5? Is it down to 5 now? I can't fucking remember off the top of my head, but yeah, new wet weather rules introduced for 2022. And the suspensions of the number 38 team were upheld by the appeals board. The appeals panel, different appeals panel, upheld 4 race suspensions to Front Row Motorsports for Will that came off at Fontana, Seth Barber, the crew chief, Jordan Osinski, the jackman, and Tanner Andrews, the front changer, suspended for 4 races, can make one last appeal and send it to the final appeals officer. So we'll have to wait and see if they actually do that. But this is obviously the biggest news of the weekend, and it honestly got a lot less fanfare than I thought it would, which is kind of surprising. NASCAR and Hendrick will race at Le Mans in 2023 in the 24 hours of Le Mans. This is no shit. So, let me go back to display capture and put this up. Breaking. NASCAR Hendrick to pursue racing next-gen car at Le Mans. Now, obviously, it'll have to be modified because it'll have to be a hybrid. It would be a specifically modified Chevy Camaro ZL1 built by Hendrick Motorsports. Would be a Garage 56 car, a class reserved for innovative concept cars. Seeking to compete in the 24 Hours of Le Mans for the first time in 2023, 7-time NASCAR champion crew chief Chad Knaus is the program manager, is a collaborative effort between NASCAR, IMSA, Hendrick, Chevy, and Goodyear. So all of these entities are basically all coming together to make this happen for Le Mans in 2023. And obviously this is a pretty fucking big deal because the 24 Hours of Le Mans it's still the most prestigious endurance race in the world. I mean, everybody who's had their hand in endurance racing, particularly in sports car racing, covets a win at Le Mans, and it's one of the 3 crown jewels of motorsport, along with winning the Indianapolis 500 and the Monaco Grand Prix or the Formula One World Championship. It's part of the Triple Crown of motorsport, and it's part of that for a reason. It's one of the most difficult races in the world to win. So, you know, the fact that NASCAR and Hendrick are going to be basically teaming up to race at Le Mans next year is a pretty damn big deal. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next year at Le Mans with this car and how they perform. Because, I mean, Rick Hendrick has even stated himself, we're not going there just to ride around. Which tells me that they're going there to do well and possibly even win. So, there you go. So pretty big news in regards to Le Mans in 2023. But that is all we have as far as news of the week. So some pretty big news coming out this week. Obviously, the NASCAR going to Le Mans next year was the biggest one out of all of them. So without further ado, hold on, let me check on my food. Heading to me, about fucking time. Still gonna take about another 11 to 16 minutes. I ordered some food, and I'm still waiting on it. But he's on the way now, so hey. But what do you say we go ahead and get this review done and over with? The Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 at Atlanta, and this is the last time that QuikTrip will sponsor this race. Of course, obviously, this is our 130th episode of The Fuel and the title of this race, and I can't believe how well this worked out, because the last letters of each word basically combine with the next one. DaytonAtlanTAlladega. Because basically they turned Atlanta into DaytonAtlanTAlladega. Turned it into a superspeedway. But, I mean, from an entertainment perspective, it pretty much fucking worked. I mean, that's about all there is to it. I mean, do I want to see this for every other mile and a half? Fuck no. We don't need, like I said before, we don't need 15 goddamn superspeedway races. Alright? Hopefully, I am hoping to God this was just a one-time thing. We really don't need this for every single goddamn intermediate track. So, that's what I'm hoping for. Like Kurt Busch said in his post-race interview, I'm hoping that they just go, unrestricted at the next race in July. At least that's what we're hoping. We don't know if that's going to be the case. I doubt it. But one can hope, right? So, give me 1 second to get my notes out here. And there are a lot of fucking notes, I'll tell you that much. A lot more than I thought I'd be taking in this race today. Alright, so 2022 Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500. There were two cars that had to go to the rear of the field. Harrison Burton to the rear for 2 tech inspection failures, and Brad Keselowski had to go to the rear for unapproved adjustments. So, stage is a lot simpler this time around. 1 and 2 were 105 laps, with stage 3 being 115 laps. So let's go ahead and get into it. Stage 1, 105 laps. So, by the way, fuck the out of bounds rule. It still sucks. We only saw one instance of it being used, though, and it was near the end of this race. So that surprised the fuck out of me. So Chase Briscoe starts from the pole. There was no qualifying. Qualifying was rained out on Friday, so they had to use the new metric that they use to determine the field now. Logano pushes Blaney to the lead at the start of the race, but Briscoe fights back on the outside. Blaney leads lap 1, but we get our first pure lead change on lap 2 when Chase Briscoe regains the lead. Kyle Busch with a run under Briscoe to take the lead in turn 2 for a second pure lead change on lap 7. Blaney tries to fight back on the bottom. Chase Elliott gets by Blaney and is now challenging Busch for the lead and takes it on lap 13, but Kyle Busch gets it back on lap 16. Hamlin challenges Chastain for third, and we get our first caution on lap 24 when Noah Gragson gets loose in turn 2 and smashes into the outside wall head on. Looked like a hard hit, too. There were some pretty hard hits in this race today, too. And then we get a bit of a confusion in the control room as NASCAR first says that this would be the competition caution, but then calls an audible and says, nah, we'll still have the competition caution at lap 45. And I'm just like, seriously? Like, why the fuck are you just... Lord, have mercy. These officials, man. Anyways, Alex Bowman and Greg Biffle get caught speeding on pit road, so they have to go to the tail for the restart, which is led by Kyle Busch. Chastain gets the lead on the restart. William Byron comes up to challenge on the inside. Briscoe goes high in turn 3 and loses a ton of spots. Might have even scraped the wall a little bit. We have our fifth pure lead change when William Byron takes the lead from Chastain on lap 35. Chastain gets back to the lead, but Byron slingshots back by him, so the slingshot move has been reborn here at Atlanta. But Chastain regains the lead in turn 1 for a 6-pure lead change in lap 41. And then Byron regains it 2 laps later on lap 43 with another slingshot move. They were basically trading slingshots back and forth. Logano in 4th trying to make something happen on the inside. Chastain slingshots back by Byron to take the lead once again, but then we get our second caution on lap 46, which was the competition caution, which, I mean, they had 50 minutes of practice. What the fuck is the competition caution for? I mean, you know, that's the reason why we wanted practice back, so we didn't have to have these fucking competition cautions. Like, what in the actual fuck? I swear to God, NASCAR sometimes just can't get out of their own fucking way. I don't understand it. You know, they've made a good car, and I don't know. Kind of frustrating, to say the least. Give me 1 second. Where's the food? Still not close. Yeah, I might have to pause for the cause here in a minute. So we have our competition caution. Of course, we'll talk about that. How fucking stupid it is. Everyone comes in for service. Blaney wins the race off pit road. Almirola gets spun on pit road. This was a pretty crazy little pit stop sequence. Almirola gets spun as Eric Jones was trying to leave. Christopher Bell and Justin Haley had equipment interference violations, and Kurt Busch had a safety violation. And Blaney had to pit a second time because they couldn't get all the fuel in the car the first time. I guess they had some sort of fueling problem. Crazy pit stop here. So Logano leads on the restart. Chastain slingshots past Logano with help from Reddick for 8th pure lead change on lap 55. The top 6 cars go single file on the outside lane, but then Logano gets by Chastain for the lead on lap 64. Reddick now to the inside to try to take the lead. Logano gets stuck in the sucker hole, which is something that we commonly see at Daytona-Talladega, as both Reddick and Chastain split him for the lead. And Chastain ends up with the lead on lap 70. Byron gets by Reddick for 2nd. Chastain, Byron, and Reddick break away from the main pack in like a little 3-car breakaway. Eric Jones tries to challenge the top 3 on the inside lane. Oops. I have the wrong music on. Fuck. There we go. Forgot to change that. Whoops. Whoopsie doodle. So you get to hear 2 different kinds of background music tonight. There you go. Kurt Busch up to the top 10 after having to start at the rear at this restart due to a safety violation penalty. The train begins to form on lap 90, but then we get our 3rd caution on lap 95 when the right rear tire blows on Ross Chastain's car as he is leading. But unlike the others that we see in this race, he actually didn't get a whole hell of a lot of damage. I mean, he scraped the right rear, but it could have been a lot worse. And I mean a lot worse. About half the field comes in for service, but Chastain has to serve a 2-lap penalty for improper fueling. I guess the fuel guy was doing some other service other than fueling, and that somehow warrants a 2-lap penalty. I mean, if that's the rule, sure, but I mean, 2 laps because the fuel guy did something else? Like I said, NASCAR can't get out of their own fucking way. I mean, they make some of the dumbest fucking rules I've ever heard in my life. Byron leads on the restart, but we don't get much racing as we have our 4th caution on lap 103 when Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch crash in the quad oval after Dillon gets loose in turn 4, although it looked like Kyle Busch was pushing on him. For the most part, I think Kyle Busch was trying to do a bump draft, but it got Dillon loose in turn 4. Chase Briscoe spins and Ty Dillon crashes hard on the front stretch, apparently after Briscoe gets into him. So that takes both Dillon brothers out of the race. And William Byron wins stage 1 under the yellow flag. easy here. Yep, looks like it. All right, so, well, thankfully we come to the end of stage 1. So give me 1 second, and I'll be right back. Ciao, cat. All right, I'm back. Anyway, where was I? So the cars that didn't stop under the previous caution come in under this caution. So now we come to stage number 2, also 105 laps. Christopher Bell leads on the restart. Bubba Wallace was up to the top 5 at this point. Logano tries to come back on the inside to try to take the lead. Top 6 then fall in single file once again. Then Harvick tries to come up the inside lane to try to challenge for the lead. And it was at this point that we get probably the craziest portion of the race in terms of swappage for the race lead. So we have in about a 20 lap stretch 10 lead changes. Harvick takes the lead on lap 122. That's our 11th pure lead change of the day. Truex and Bell split Harvick for the lead down the backstretch, much like what happened with Logano earlier. And Truex ends up with the lead on lap 125. Logano slingshots by Truex with a push from his teammate Blaney to retake the lead, or to take the lead on lap 126. Kurt Busch moves up the inside of Logano and takes the race lead away. And they actually, Kurt Busch takes the lead on lap 128. And then Ricky Stenhouse Jr. comes up to challenge. And they go side by side for the race lead for several laps. And they swap the lead back and forth. Stenhouse takes the lead on lap 130. Then Kurt Busch took it back on lap 131. And Stenhouse retook it on lap 133. So they went back and forth for a little bit. Of course, remember, these are the two guys that got into it at Pocono a couple years ago. So there you go. Justin Haley moves up to second in all this craziness and challenges Stenhouse for the lead and actually takes it on lap 138 for our 18th pure lead change of the day. Haley gets loose in turn 2 but hangs on. Then Reddick takes over the lead at that point on lap 139. Byron moves back up to second and regains the lead from Reddick on lap 144 for our 20th pure lead change of the day. And then just one lap later, we get our 5th caution on lap 145 when Tyler Reddick also blows a right rear tire, spins in turn 4 and collects Kurt Busch, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Kyle Larson, and Corey LaJoie, who actually got some air as he went through the infield grass. Michael McDowell, Alex Bowman, Harrison Burton, Denny Hamlin, and Ryan Blaney also suffered some kind of damage from this wreck. So that's what, like 11, 13 cars right there. This is why we didn't want to see this super speedway shit at Atlanta, because along with the excitement of the side-by-side racing and all that stuff, there's also the potential for the big crash. And we saw an example of it here. Everyone comes in for service and Byron wins the race off pit road. A couple penalties that came out of this. Truex was caught speeding on pit road and Suarez was penalized for pitting out of the box. Although they did change a rule for pitting out of the box. It used to be a 1-lap penalty. But now, if it happens under caution, it's tail end of the longest line. So they've mitigated the penalty somewhat, where it's not as damaging as it used to be. Which is good. They need to do that with some of their other penalties, like improper fueling, which is 2 laps, which is fucking stupid. Byron leads on the restart. Both Harvick and Blaney blow by Byron for the lead. They were kind of in a tandem draft. You get a 6th caution on lap 157, so not long afterwards, and it was for debris. There were quite a bit of damaged cars out there, so it stands to reason that some taped on shit would fly out onto the racetrack. So Harvick leads on the restart. Byron leads the first lap after the restart and actually takes over the lead. We get some 3 wide racing in the mid-pack. Top 5 goes single file. Christopher Bell moves up to 2nd, but Blaney gets a push from Stenhouse and gets by everyone to take over the race lead on lap 184 for our 21st pure lead change of the day. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. decides to come back and say, hey, I want the lead for myself once again. So he takes the lead back on lap 185 for our 22nd pure lead change of the day. And this is when things kind of started to settle down. Kyle Larson was up in the top 5 despite quite a bit of damage that he incurred from the big wreck. We had some 3 wide in the mid-pack, but then the top 7 break away from the main pack, and then the big old choo-choo train forms at this point. It stays like that for a few laps. But then we get our 7th caution on lap 202 when we have yet another right rear tire go down. The 3rd one of the race, and the 2nd time when someone was leading, as Ricky Stenhouse blows a right rear and collects Austin Cindric, who got spun by Suarez, which, I mean, I don't know if you can really blame Suarez. I mean, both of them were trying to slow down and avoid the wreck. And Eric Jones and Kevin Harvick were also involved in this crash, and Harvick basically lost his entire right front fender. Or was it his left front fender? It was his left front fender that got completely torn off. And at first I was kind of like, what the fuck's going on, Goodyear? But then they actually brought up a good point. That it was basically all the same manufacturer, Chevy. And let me find this here. So Goodyear's Greg Stucker stopped by the media center after the 3rd tire blowout and said that they were collecting the right rears that went down by leading cars, Chastain, Reddick, and Stenhouse. And apparently, according to preliminary observations, they said that tires were overloaded and over-deflected. He cited the common theme of one manufacturer, said wear was not an issue. And that was kind of the case. Tires, as far as tire wear, was not as significant as, you know, some of the races that we've had earlier this year. And that's mainly due to the new surface. It's not as abrasive. Of course, give it a few years. But it's not as abrasive as the other surfaces because it's a new surface. But the problem with that is there's so much, and according to some of the drivers, there was so much pressure, particularly when they were in the lead on the right rear tire, that it felt like, you know, it was way loaded. And that seemed to be what Goodyear, this guy Greg Stucker said from Goodyear, said that tires were overloaded and over deflected. And there was also some rumblings that maybe, you know, camber might have been an issue as well, where these 3 teams that had the right rear tires blow up, it might have been due to camber issues, where they have the tire pointed in like this, because you don't want the tire to be just straight up like this, because when you go into the turns, not all of the tire's surface is going to be contacting the racetrack. So what teams do is that they lean the tire in like this, camber, so that way when they go into the turns, the full surface of the tire meets the pavement, which in turn means more grip. The problem is when you lean in the camber too much, the shoulder can get overheated and can eventually melt and blow out. And that may have been the case with Chastain, Reddick, and Stenhouse. Although Chastain was able to recover and damn near won the race, whereas Reddick and Stenhouse were pretty much junked. Although Chastain got lucky, as he was able to collect it in turn 2 and didn't really hit the wall all that hard and it didn't really do that much damage, whereas Reddick and Stenhouse were basically junked. Because I think Reddick was in turns 1 and 2, and then Stenhouse was in turn 4. But that was something that was brought up during the race as well. So most of the field comes in for service. Bell gets penalized for removing equipment, which was the gas can, I believe. So Blaney leads on the restart. Larson takes the lead on the restart, but then it goes so bad for him right off the bat. We got our 8th caution on lap 208. Hamlin trying to give him a bump draft, coming off of turn 4, similar to what happened at the end of stage 1 with Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon. Gets into Larson off 4, and who was trying to bump draft, rather, by the way. Larson spins, bumps into Elliott's right door, then spins back up into the wall, which also collects Denny Hamlin. And this would put both Larson and Hamlin out of the race. So yet another race where Hamlin does not score a top 10 finish. I mean, he was basically top 10, top 5 every week last week, it seemed like. And now this year, no top 10s to speak of. Like, it is crazy how these seasons can look year to year. And Larson, yet another DNF on a quote-unquote super speedway race. But, I mean, in his case, I mean, he has a win to his credit. So, and he'll bounce back from this. Of course, going to Circuit of the Americas next week. And Larson has proven himself to be pretty damn good on the road courses, as well as Chase Elliott. So, you know, both of those guys are going to be looking forward to next week. But once again, stage ends under caution. And this time it was Ryan Blaney who ended up with the stage win. Several cars come in for service. So now we come to stage number 3, which was a real mixed bag. Not as many lead changes in this one as the previous 2 stages. Suarez leads the start of stage 3. Top 6 went single file almost immediately. Truex gets a run underneath the Suarez for the lead and takes it for a 23rd pure lead change on lap 225. Elliott to the outside of Bubba Wallace for second, and Truex comes up to cover, leaving Bubba on the inside lane. But Elliott is able to work his way around the outside and take the lead for our 24th pure lead change on lap 229. Truex and Elliott go side by side for the lead for several laps. Then we get another choo-choo train. But then we get our 9th caution on lap 254 for Debris. Everyone comes in for service, and Almirola wins the race off pit road this time. So he leads on the restart. Byron tries to challenge on the inside right away and gets the lead for our 25th pure lead change on lap 262. Bowman reports a vibration on his car, and they said that we got all the lugs tied on the wheels, so they said that might have been a wheel weight. And at this point in the race, fuel mileage might have been an issue, and I put in quotation marks "might" because I didn't think we were going to go green the rest of the way, and sure enough, we didn't. Byron continues to hold serve on the outside with 40 laps to go. So it was pretty much choo-choo racing at this point, so not much going on. Then we get our 10th caution on lap 301, so once again we go into double digits with caution flags. Todd Gilliland spins off turn 2, and then while he was trying to avoid the wreck, Cody Ware gets tagged from behind, gets turned to the left, and takes a hard hit into that inside safer barrier. Fortunately, he was able to get out of the car okay, because that was a vicious impact. I mean, there were some pretty damn hard impacts with the walls in this race. Thank God for the safer barriers and all the other safety innovations that NASCAR's put into these race cars over the years. So several cars come in for service. Byron leads on the restart with 19 laps to go, but then we immediately get our 11th and thankfully final caution on lap 308 when Almirola gets spun down the front stretch off of Chastain's bumper, obviously trying to bump draft once again. But Almirola was able to get it back under control and did kind of a basic power slide, and was able to get back to pit road without much of an issue and get the tires changed. So we have our final restart with 13 laps to go with Byron in the lead. Bubba Wallace takes the lead on the restart with a great jump. Byron and Blaney nearly make contact off of turn 4 as Byron retakes the lead for a 26th and final pure lead change on lap 316. They go single file with 6 laps to go, obviously setting up for the finish. But this is when pretty much everybody went into no me mode and pretty much let Byron off the hook, because we saw in both the truck and Xfinity races that going into the white flag was not the hot ticket, because both guys who were leading at the white flag in both the truck and Xfinity Series races got slingshotted on going into turn 1. but everybody basically had a me, myself, and I kind of attitude going into the final laps of this race, which ended up working in Byron's favor. Elliott tries to challenge on the inside. Bell goes to the bottom to try to challenge, but no dice. Then Chastain tries to make a run. He actually gets the inside of Bubba Wallace going into turn 1 and moves up to second. Wallace actually gets loose in front of Blaney, and Blaney slips up and gets into the outside wall. Christopher Bell gets the inside of Chastain, but goes below the white and red line. We'll get to that in a minute. To get alongside Chastain. There was a big crash at the line as Chris Buescher looks like he got turned on the front stretch, darts back over into the wall, and collects Justin Haley and Bubba Wallace. They all go hard into the outside wall. William Byron holds on to win the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 in a pretty crazy finish. And afterwards, Christopher Bell was penalized for going below the red and yellow line to pass, so he would finish at the tail end of the lead lap, 23rd. I mean, in accordance with the rule, it was the correct ruling because it didn't look like he was forced below the white and red line. It looked like he made the move down there himself. So, I mean, in accordance with the rule, it was the correct call, but the rule still sucks ass. And I'm not going to change my mind about that. So Chastain is promoted to second as a result. So his finishes in the last 3 races: third, second, second. I got to tell you something. Trackhouse Racing is the hot new team in the NASCAR Cup Series. I mean, their rise to challenge the juggernauts of the Cup Series is unreal. They went from a 1-car operation last year with Daniel Suarez, and they saw some success here and there, but nothing to really knock your socks off. But the moment they went to a 2-car operation and acquired Chip Ganassi Racing's team and all of the assets that they had, including Ross Chastain as a teammate to Daniel Suarez, that is when all of the pieces have come together. And Suarez had a top 5 finish as well. He finished 4th. So both Trackhouse cars in the top 5. Trackhouse has been putting it together, and they have a 2-car operation now, and they've been lighting things up in the Cup Series. I mean, honestly, as good as Chastain has been this year, third, second, last 3 races, when you're knocking on the door that often, it's only a matter of time before you knock it down. And I think we're going to be seeing Ross Chastain get his maiden Cup victory very soon. And the same goes for Suarez. He's been pretty close too. A couple 4th place finishes already this year in 5 races. He had a 4th at Auto Club, 4th here at Atlanta. I mean, he might be knocking on the door for his first career win as well and become the first Mexican-born driver to win at NASCAR's highest level. That would be pretty cool. So, yeah, this was a pretty interesting race to say the least. That's one that's really left me kind of wondering, God, how the fuck do you rate a race like this? Like how? How do you do it? But let's go ahead and get to the statistics and awards for the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500. So, as per the usual, we have the statistics. Laps, 325 laps. It was broken down pretty evenly, 105, 105, 115. Overall lead changes. There were actually a couple of different records that were broken in this race as a result of the new configuration. I think one was a record that had stood for more than 60 years. I think it was something like cars involved in crashes or cars DNF'd or something like that. Not exactly a stat that you want to see a record broken at, but there were 2 records in particular that were broken, all-time records that were broken at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Well, as far as racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway is concerned. One, there were 20 different leaders. Out of 37 drivers that competed in this race, 20 of them led at least one lap during this race. That is an all-time Atlanta Motor Speedway record. And this track has been around since 1960. But the other all-time record, that was broken. There's a new all-time lead change count record. 46 overall lead changes in this race. Holy shit. Let's go back to Racing Reference real quick. You cats quit. Quit being mean to the little ones. I'll bust your ass. Quit. Fucking cats. Anyway. Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500. Actually, that's not what I wanted. What I wanted was... There we go. So, lead change count. This race had more lead changes than Daytona. The Daytona 500 previously had the most lead changes of the year at 35. And yes, granted, this has more laps than Daytona. 325 laps as opposed to 200 at Daytona. Regardless. 46 overall lead changes. This race had more lead changes than both Atlanta races last year combined. Just to give you an idea. The Quaker State 400 had just 10 overall lead changes in a 400-mile race. Only 2,087 overall green flag passes. And then this edition of the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 from 2021, only 11 lead changes overall. 2,386 green flag passes. So combined, that's what? About 4,400 overall green flag passes between the two races and 21 total lead changes between both Atlanta races a year ago. But we had 46 overall lead changes from this race alone. So more than double the number of lead changes we had from both Atlanta races last year combined. 26 of them were pure lead changes. We had more pure lead changes in this race than overall lead changes in both Atlanta races last year combined. But we still had 11 caution flags, so we still had way too many caution flags. I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, it's a super speedway style race that they did here at Atlanta this week. So that's not a number that you want to see very high. But, I mean, 46 overall lead changes, 26 of them pure. I mean, and then green flag passes overall. Remember I said that both races last year had about 4,400 combined. 6,439 total green flag passes. An average of 24.8 per green flag lap. Yeah, but like I said, I don't want to see this super speedway shit at every single mile and a half. I don't. You know, the super speedway shit is unique to Daytona and Talladega. Let's not dilute shit. Okay, especially when we didn't really ask for this super speedway shit at Atlanta. So like, I've already alluded to this before, but like Kurt Busch said, let's go unrestricted in July and see what happens. But in terms of competitiveness and entertainment value, let's be honest here. This race was a hell of a lot better than last year's. Last year's was god awful. In fact, I would say both races last year were fucking garbage. So, there's that. At least this race didn't suck as much ass. Didn't suck anywhere near as much ass as last year's did. Lap Leader Award goes to William Byron, your race winner. I think the first time this year that the race winner has also led the most laps. Only 111 laps led, which is kind of low for Atlanta, considering that it's 325 laps. But again, super speedway package. Star of the race. I might think, well, who's going to be the star of the race this time around? How about Corey LaJoie? Driving for the Spire Motorsports number 7 car, which ironically enough is the same team that was once owned by Alan Kulwicki. It's been passed around, different ownership over the years, but it's essentially the same team owned by Alan. That was once owned by Alan Kulwicki, which we learned about not too long ago. I think it was like last week or something like that during the Phoenix race. I can't really remember, but I know it was on one of the broadcasts. So wrap your head around that shit. Gets spun around backwards early in the race. Actually lifted off the ground because there was somebody that had a shot of it and actually shows the car actually off the ground at one point, but keeps the car from crashing and comes back for a top 5 finish. His first career top 5, driving for Spire Motorsports. If that's not worthy of star of the race, I don't know what is. Reject of the race. The right rear tires that blew out. Because every single time all 3 cars were up at the front or leading the race. Chastain, who actually recovered to finish second. Reddick was actually involved in multiple incidents. Fuck! Can't talk tonight. And who was the other one? Stenhouse. He got junked, so he wasn't able to recover. So, yeah, the right rear tires, you know, of course that might have been due to teams putting too much camber in, like I said before, but those were the reject of the race. So, there you go. So, race results and point standings. Taking a look at the top 10, William Byron with the win, led 111 laps. I also won a stage, so he earns quite a number of points. Ross Chastain with his second runner-up finish in a row, led 42 laps on the day. Kurt Busch with a top 3 finish for 2311 Racing. So he's been doing pretty good so far this year with his new team. Led 4 laps on the day. Daniel Suarez with another top 5, leading 13 total laps. Corey LaJoie with a top 5 finish, his best career cup result. Nicely done. Chase Elliott, 29 laps led, finishes 6th. Chris Buescher finished 7th, but of course was involved in that fracas at the line. Has a bit of a torn up race car, but does get a top 10 finish. Martin Truex Jr. finishes 8th, led 5 laps on the day. Joey Logano was involved in the big wreck. Led 12 laps on the day, recovered to finish 9th, and Alex Bowman rounds out the top 10. Point standings after 5 races. Chase Elliott is your new points leader. Joey Logano drops to 2nd, 7 points back. Chase Briscoe is 3rd, 15 points back. William Byron moves all the way up to 4th with his win. Kurt Busch is in a tie for 5th with Ryan Blaney. So yeah, Kurt has been doing really good this year in that 2311 car. A lot of people are like, oh, is 2311 really going to be that good this year? Will they be that good in the 45 car with Kurt Busch behind the wheel? Yeah, they're 5th in points right now. Eric Almirola 7th in points, so even though he didn't get a top 10 finish, he's still running pretty good. A lot better than last year. Truex 8th in points, Alex Bowman 9th. Ross Chastain jumps all the way up to the top 10 in points on this streak that he's on. Kyle Busch drops to 11th. Kyle Larson is 12th, your defending champion, but you know, back-to-back weeks of some pretty shitty luck. A blown engine at Phoenix, and then getting caught up in not 1 but 2 wrecks, not of his own doing, by the way. Suarez up to 13th in a tie with Kevin Harvick. Tyler Reddick is 15th, and Brad Keselowski rounds out the top 16 thus far. Austin Cindric drops all the way to 17th in points. Man, since that Daytona 500 win, he's not had a single top 10 finish. He's actually had a couple bad races. Bad luck, not of his own doing. But he does have the win at Daytona, so at the moment he's locked into the playoff. Bubba Wallace is 18th, Eric Jones 19th, and Chris Buescher rounds out the top 20. As for what the point standings would look like if they used the Formula 1 system, and of course this is calculated with the new sprint system that they got in place for the stages. I'm using that for the stages, which is top 8 finishers getting points, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the usual point system. This is what the point standings would look like under the F1 system. It'll look radically different. Chase Elliott is the current points leader, but under the F1 system, he would be 8th. William Byron becomes the new points leader under the F1 system with 75 points. Ross Chastain jumps all the way up to 2nd. Of course, he has quote-unquote 3 podiums in a row. Kyle Larson drops to 3rd. Chase Briscoe is 4th. Ryan Blaney 5th. Tyler Reddick 6th. Alex Bowman 7th. Chase Elliott 8th with 42 points. Then Joey Logano and Daniel Suarez rounds at the top 10. Rest of the field that now includes 30 drivers in the points. Eric Jones and Kurt Busch have 34. Eric Almirola with 32. Austin Cindric and Kyle Busch with 30. Truex with 29. Bubba Wallace with 25. Kevin Harvick with 23. Austin Hill with 21. And Brad Keselowski with 19 rounds out the top 20. Then you have Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Denny Hamlin, all the way back to in 20, second place. I mean, this system also shows how terrible Hamlin's season has been so far. In fact, Denny Hamlin is not in the top 20 in points right now. After 5 races, that's a bit of a concern. Corey LaJoie, 23rd, 10 points. Of course, those are the 10 points they earned when this 5th place finish. You have Chris Buescher, Todd Gilliland, Michael McDowell with 6 points, David Reagan and Christopher Bell with 4 points, Cole Custer with 3, and Daniel Hemrick with 2. And that is not the final rating. That was from the previous week. So, wow. What do I give this race for my final rating? I mean, holy shit. I mean, this is probably one of the hardest races I've ever had to rate because there are so many factors that went into this race. Of course, the superspeedway thing, which, I think a lot of people didn't really want for Atlanta, to be honest. But, I mean, it was pretty damn entertaining. Although we did see stretches of that choo-choo train racing that we see at Daytona-Talladega. And once again, way too many caution flags. But we did see a record number of lead changes for this race. 26 overall pure lead changes. 46 overall lead changes. 20 different drivers led during this race, which is also a new track record. And we did get the longest green flag run to end the race. I mean, the longest before today was 4 laps, and we got 13 laps. So I guess that accounts for something. But, and we did get a finish, so, man. One thing I will note that the broadcast was noticeably a lot better with Jeff Gordon in the booth. Makes me think that he was probably a good fit for the booth. But, man. When you look at it in terms of, you have to look at it as a super speedway race. And was this a good super speedway race? As much as I don't like to do that, I mean, this pretty much was a super speedway race. It was made that way by design by NASCAR. All the way down to the out of bounds rule. So in terms of it being a super speedway race, was it a good race? A good super speedway race? I mean, I would have to say yes. I would have to say yes because the statistics are there. Of course, we saw it on the racetrack. Saw the slingshot come back to life. The old slingshot maneuver. And overall, this was a pretty good race. I mean, all things considered, when you look at it as a super speedway race, it was pretty good. I mean, I don't want to see this kind of shit for the other intermediate tracks. Let's try to keep this unique to Daytona and Talladega. But for today, I will say this was a damn solid race at Atlanta. And honestly, it was a lot better than the last two Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500s that we've seen. So I'm going to give this race a solid 8 on the fuel gauge. So an 8 out of 10, which is pretty damn good. In fact, I think that's the highest rating I've given this year. So as of right now, it is the highest rated race. I think it is the highest rated race so far this year. So I think I gave the Daytona 500 a 7, maybe an 8 too. I know California I gave a 7. I think Las Vegas I gave a 7. And then Phoenix I gave a 4. So yeah, an 8's a pretty damn good score, all things considered. But let's try to go unrestricted for the race in July and see what happens. And let's get rid of the stupid ass out of bounds rule, because that was dumb putting that in. But that's just my opinion. But that is going to do it for tonight's edition of The Fuel. Yet another long ass review. Feels like these reviews are getting longer and longer. But there's just been a lot to talk about so far this season. Hasn't really been any race this year that hasn't been entertaining to talk about. Even Phoenix had its moments last week. I mean, that was still like a 40-minute long stream, and it wasn't as good as the other races that we've seen so far this year. But next week we're going to our first road course race of the year, Circuit of the Americas, and see how this new car fares on the road circuits. Will it be as good as some of the racing that we've seen in the past with the Gen 6 car? Who knows? Again, it's an unknown. But it'll be interesting to see, to say the least. But this season has honestly started out pretty good, I will admit. So it's so far so good with this new car. We just need to clean up the caution flags a little bit. We're still getting way too many caution flags. If we can clean those up a little bit, I'd be pretty okay with what's going on so far. And also get rid of the dumb competition caution, because honestly we don't fucking need it. But that's going to do it for tonight's edition of The Fuel. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, this is the Packer Man signing out. See you later. Thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to like and subscribe, you jackweeds.